My name is Christina Cottery. I'm an 8th grade English teacher here at Punahou, and I'm very excited to welcome you all to the finals of our 8th grade Damon speech. We're so excited to have our wonderful 8 speakers up here. For those of you that don't know, actually, Damon speech is a tradition that started in the 1870s, and it's named after Willie Damon, who's a student who unexpectedly passed away while he was here. His father, Reverend Samuel Damon, donated money to the school to start a speaking competition in his honor. And so ever since then, Punahou has been focusing on the importance of public speaking with its students. While the Damon speech did take a break at one point, it was brought back a few decades ago, actually, and quite a few of you, if your parents are alumni, your parents might have actually done, or your family might have done Damon speech if your family are alumni, because the competition has been going on for quite a while. So we're very grateful to have these 8 students up here joining us in that tradition of the Damon speech. So we're gonna jump right in. Just so you folks know, a couple of reminders. Firstly, for our guest judges, I'm hoping I don't have to remind any 8th graders, but you definitely wanna make sure that anything that might cause noise is silenced and turned off. If you have a water bottle around you or anything like that, anything that might be knocked over and make a loud sound that could be distracting, you might want to check on that just to be safe. We want to give our speakers as much support as we can by giving them a distraction-free time to speak. Just to preview a little bit for you folks, what will happen is I'll announce the name of each speaker and the title of their speech. We'll have a moment to kind of figure out sound as far as whether they want to use the mic stand or not, and then they'll get started. And with that, we're going to jump right in. So first up, I'd like to welcome Connor Ress, whose speech title is Social Media Accountability.
We all find ourselves doing it, scrolling through social media, YouTube, TikTok, or whatever site we use. These companies see what we like and they feed us more of the same, whether that's cooking shows, fashion trends, or the latest Warhammer models. While this may seem good for the users, it is actually a form of manipulation that can have dangerous and harmful outcomes. These companies make money off of showing us things that they think we'll like, regardless of whether it is true or appropriate. These companies are currently immune from any consequences because they have protection under a regulation called Section 230. Thus, they profit without being held accountable for any harm their websites cause, including to children and society at large. Politicians in Congress enacted Section 230 because they wanted a place for people to freely express and create new ideas, believing that the companies had no say in what was said, unlike traditional media that analyzes and curates the information. However, it has recently come to light that these companies are in fact controlling what is seen on their sites through algorithms. The algorithms that determine what we as the users see do not discern right from wrong, truth from lie. Rather, their sole design is to keep the user hooked, and that can often lead them down a rabbit hole. This way of spreading information can cause horrible things to happen. For example, there's currently a case before the United States Supreme Court that could take away Section 230 protections. The case involves a Paris shooting that killed an American girl, Nohemi Gonzalez. Gonzalez was eating in a cafe when she was shot dead by a man radicalized by watching YouTube videos, ISIS videos posted on YouTube. The killer could have been anyone who had been swayed by the content fed to them by YouTube. The more times that someone sees something, the more likely they are to agree with it. Another problem with social media is that it spreads misinformation super quickly. Now, not only do groups use social media platforms like YouTube to spread their misinformation, but also to plan and coordinate. The group that stormed the Capitol on January 6th almost exclusively used social media to coordinate and communicate their actions. While these groups were talking about how to disrupt our own country's justice system, the law allowed these companies to just look the other way. Because these companies are completely ignoring the harm their websites cause, it is letting the problem spread, and it is getting worse. Our country is currently divided, largely in part because of the way that social media spreads misinformation and the many untrue things being spread. Some could argue, though, that there are many benefits to social media that would be lost through more regulations. Things like creating a place for free expression, for friends to chat, and getting important messages sent quickly. But holding these companies accountable doesn't mean these benefits will just disappear, or that these companies go bankrupt. Holding them accountable just means they'll have to make different business decisions, which in turn could benefit them if they embrace safety in their business model. If YouTube is held accountable by the United States Supreme Court for what happened to Nohemi Gonzalez, social media will be a safer place for everyone, online and offline. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Connor. Definitely a timely topic in this day and age. Next up, we'd like to welcome Kiran Toma, who will be doing the speech No Hate.
Good. Yeah. Black Lives Matter. Sorry, never heard of it. The LGBTQ plus community. What's that? Not hating, just asking, right? If you found it offensive, then ask why. I was just asking a question. Personally, I believe this wasn't hateful. This premise of finding offensive thoughts in speech is too ongoing in society. It limits anyone with a different opinion, restricts expression. Hate speech is being skewered into stealing the freedom of speech from others. Rules no longer listen to fact and intent, and rather listen to anything that can be taken the wrong way. That's why the rules of hate speech and freedom of speech need to be taught more, because people assume bad faith of the speaker, violence and harm is no longer the basis of hate speech, and because modern culture punishes opinion. Hate speech is defined as abusive or threatening speech or writing that expresses prejudice on the basis of ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or similar grounds. Though this sounds bad, it's legal. As free citizens, saying something that may be hateful does not lose our protection under the First Amendment. Speech only becomes unconstitutional when it invokes violence to occur, when I'm truly threatening someone or telling people to commit illegal actions. Being able to learn the differences of these speech rules allows for us to express ourselves safely. Not only that, it teaches us not to be sensitive, and that finding something offensive does not mean that what the person said is wrong. We've all heard of cancel culture. Cancel culture is a way for people to punish things that others have done or said, and it's not okay. Most things said are safe, but some people feel the need to create their own justice system, that being whatever I think is right, in order to stay sensitive and make their own definition of freedom of speech. This new definition is contradictory and won't even stand for what it's built upon. How can we talk so much about using our voice to empower beliefs? We've already laid down a whole minefield for us. But expression defines us. Hating on expression means hating on us, something that people may see in response to. Some may also say that hate speech and freedom of speech are already sensitive as they are, that there are too many things that can be mistaken for in a sentence. According to Entrepreneur, 50% of emails and texts are misunderstood. And according to The Atlantic, some psychology quirks make conversations easy to misunderstand in terms of emotion. With this, it seems like we can lose the intent of the speaker. And through email, a whole paragraph can be misunderstood. Well, if your expression defines you, then your expression is lost, then what do you become? Hating on forms of expressions, such as sports, does not directly correlate to you. Not liking playing basketball does not equate to not liking Michael Jordan. And so why do people try to find ways that words can be mistaken? They trying to create chaos, they act like being angry is a reward, via treasure hunt, searching through any possible offensive word. A famous quote from Russell M. Nelson states, "Ask, and then ask again." With this, there seems to be a foolproof way to make sure what we thought we heard was correct. Ask again. NPR had a study that showed that talking to strangers might make you happier. However, how many of us willingly talk to strangers often? Since most of the people we talk to are familiar with us, we should know their speaking style. So there should be no misunderstandings when talking to them. Also, according to Psych Central, 50% of all people are empathizing communicators. And another 50% are instigators, which means that our conversations can be ruined on purpose. However, it's always good to assume the best rather than the worst when speaking to someone. We've all had times where we wanted to voice our opinion but fear backlash. So think, Wouldn't it be better if we just speak freely? There have also been times where we have assumed things about what others have said, judged them on the spot. So we're also guilty of this. It takes everyone's part to secure freedom of speech. So when you talk to people, don't hear them, listen. Listen to them and not what your mind assumes, so that within this confusing language of English, we can search for intent and fact. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Jade Pock and her speech, Physician Burnout.
Every minute of every day, my mom spends working. She's a physician at Queen's Medical Hospital, and her work controls her life. The hospitals of America are filled with struggling physicians who are burnt out due to the stress of the job. The high rate of physician burnout must be addressed, because if not, the rates of suicide in healthcare will continue to increase. More people need to be aware of this issue, because doctors don't seek help and are struggling in silence. Every doctor has experienced some type of burnout. According to the American Medical Association, physician burnout is a long-term stress reaction, including emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and feeling lack of personal accomplishment. And the effects of burnout are excessive stress, fatigue, insomnia, depression, anxiety, heart disease, and even suicide. Doctors devote their life to helping people, but who's helping them? When asked to define a doctor, the idea of an expert in medical knowledge, high intelligence, and the ability to keep calm in tough situations come to mind. However, doctors fail to seek help because they feel asking for help is a sign of weakness. According to Oxford Medical Training, 2 out of 5 doctors don't ask for help when needed. They're the highest educated profession and have to live up to impossible expectations. Physician Tammy Chang once said, "We are expected to be somehow superhuman. We are human beings first, before we are doctors." Physician Tammy Chang is trying to put an end to burnout because she was once a burnt-out physician. In her book, How to Thrive as a Woman Physician, she shares her story. She stated, "I was driving home from work one day and I imagined ways to hurt myself. I was overwhelmed with emotion. I was burnt out. Rounding a curve, I experienced a strong urge to drive myself off a cliff. But at the edge of the cliff, I stopped. And made a promise to myself that I would fight against burnout because no one should feel this way." According to Medscape, 1 in every 5 doctors have considered committing suicide, and 90% have reported symptoms of depression and anxiety. Women physicians are 400% more likely to commit suicide than women in the general population. The suicide rate in healthcare is outrageous. Suicide in healthcare must be stopped. Some may say that physician burnout isn't a major problem because hospitals have some solutions. However, hospitals aren't doing enough to fully prevent burnout in healthcare. In fact, the pandemic nearly doubled the rates of burnout. Hospitals need to promote physician well-being because when physicians are well, they are best able to care for their patients. On the other hand, when physicians are burnt out, it leads to poor patient care, which is not only dangerous for the physician, but even more so for their patient. It's clear that doctors are struggling. Society's lack of knowledge on this issue is hurting these physicians. They are always the ones helping and fail to realize that they're the ones who need help. So the next time you see your doctor, just say thank you. Those 2 words will mean the world to them. Doctors have been struggling in silence for too long. Too many doctors have died. It's time to break their silence. We must put an end to physician burnout. It's time for us to help them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jade. Next up, we have Carol Lawes, who's doing her speech, A World Without Color.
Social media is rotting your brain. Though this isn't entirely true, social media has an impact on our lives. When the media ignores a culture's existence, we instinctively do the same. This creates a feeling of loneliness, one of the worst things you can go through. Our childhood is spent learning about the world, but as a kid, I never saw myself in media. Quality cultural representation gives minority groups relatable role models, helping to dispel stereotypes that have existed for years. This allows us to learn so much of so many diverse cultures. Role models are vital in life. They're the people you look up to. Without a role model, people can be left feeling lost and alone. As stated by Teen Magazine, Disney's representation gives minorities the ability to discover themselves without the pressure to abide by a stereotype. Though sometimes Disney seems childish and cheesy, many of their recent movies give people the ability to see themselves in media. Countless minorities sympathize with Disney's characters because of similar experiences. Though the media still views our world as if we're all white, we can create stories that shed light onto the lives of minorities. People will believe that they can be something amazing, that they can be just as great as the character they see on screen. This representation should be based on facts, as the media is swamped with stereotypes. Some people think what we have is enough, reasoning that there's been an uprise in diversity. They don't realize how much more diversity we should have. According to a study by the Opportunity Agenda, the aggressive portrayal of Black men leads people to only see them as violent. Because of our mindless browsing, we don't recognize red flags signaling misinformation. We blissfully excuse ignorant writing. Ignorant writing means false stereotypes are perpetuated. A recent example of this is Netflix show Emily in Paris, which details Emily's journey navigating through Europe's differences with America. Though this seems nice, Parisians have noted how their portrayal is unrealistic and stereotypical. People are rich, yet rarely work, and when they do, they constantly take breaks. On screen, there's barely any Black, Arab, or Asian people, even though Parisian Alexandria Milhat notes that Paris has lots of diversity. These false stereotypes prevent us from learning so much of the true beauty of so many communities. This is why we need representation that provides positive learning opportunities for everyone. I've learned more about my culture because of other Filipino people on the internet. Others aren't as lucky, as many cultures aren't shown online, bringing Kilmore Willis's mentality of, why don't I see anyone like me? If kids like her saw accurate depictions of themselves, they know they belong. Seeing myself in characters has helped me gain confidence. So many people create safe spaces associated with characters. If more people embrace their identities, others that feel insecure can follow in their footsteps. Quality representation is vital because it helps people feel seen, stops misconceptions from spreading, and allows diversity to be spread across the world. Without action, nothing will change, so we need to take initiative. We can boycott certain companies that incorrectly characterize minorities. We can bring attention to those who come from different backgrounds. Change doesn't occur with one person screaming on the street, but it can with many. We have the power to change our society, our world. We have the power to bring happiness to so many people. So don't you want to make a difference? Don't you want to make dreams come true? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kara. Next up, we have Jacqueline Kashimoto with her speech, Don't Wait, Menstruate.
What's wrong with you? You've been cranky all day. Oh, don't mind her. She's just on her period. That's so gross. Why are you even at school? Period pain isn't that bad. I've experienced worse. Why are you overreacting? Thankfully, those scenarios were made up. However, menstruation stigma isn't. A good chunk of the 4 billion people who menstruate have heard comments very similar to these. Many people are uneducated on the topic of periods. This ignorance has caused the lack of accessible period products, also known as period poverty. Some may argue that period poverty isn't that significant of an issue. Periods affect 50% of the global population. The only people who would say something like this are those who don't have to deal with them each month. So, how would they know the extremity of this topic? Not having access to period products can affect one's education and greatly impact a person's physical and mental health. According to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, 1 in 5 menstruating teens aren't able to afford period products, and 1 in 10 have reported missing school during their cycles due to a lack of them. With cycles occurring once a month, this could mean many missed school days. A poor record of attendance could result in a drop in a student's academic levels. As education is vital, missing 1 too many days could lead to the loss of necessary skills. Along with one's education, not having access to sanitary products can lead to complications with a person's physical health. In a study done with over 500 college students, over half of them reported using products longer than the recommended duration of 4 to 8 hours. Doing this can lead to a vaginal infection with terrible effects like vaginal itching and soreness. Many people also reported using items in place of sanitary products, such as rags and children's diapers. This can result in similar infections with symptoms of bloody urine, nausea, and more. The pain that those who menstruate have to endure is already absurd. It can worsen if the menstruator doesn't have access to period products. Did any of that make you uncomfortable? I thought so. Menstruation, which is normal, is seen as dirty and shameful. These thoughts are causing the problem to go unaddressed and are harming people's mental health. Research from BMC Women's Health Journal has shown that there are higher rates of depression in those who struggle with period poverty compared to those who do not. Not to mention, transgender individuals can also menstruate, and they experience much more stigma. With all the pressure, anxiety, and uneducated people surrounding the menstruating population, lots of damage is being done to one's mental state. The most heartbreaking thing is the never-ending reports of people all around the world not having the right products. Something needs to happen. Luckily, many places are making a change. In 2020, Scotland became the first nation to have free access to period products. Countries like France, New Zealand, and South Africa offer products in schools with no charge. At our school, teenager Austin Kinney has advocated for access to products in public schools and areas around Punahou's own campus. This just goes to show that even small actions can make an immense movement towards global menstrual equality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Next up, we have Sofia Pomares Sotomayor with the speech, My Beef with Beef.
An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Who here eats an apple every day? If yes, great. If not, welcome to the club. Now, show of hands, who eats beef more than once a week? Congrats, you all fit the American standard. We all do it, so why does it matter? If it's so bad, why hasn't it stopped? Eating meat has a devastating effect on the planet. Cows emit billions of pounds of CO2, destroy our land, and we do practically nothing to stop it. Imagine a world where humans didn't eat meat. What do you expect? Angry vegetarians taking over the world, forcing bundles of broccoli down your throat? Or reality? Billions of acres of land preserved, gigatons of greenhouse gases mitigated, and restoration of vital ecosystems that once defined life on Earth. Society must begin cutting their emissions, and reducing intake of meat is a solution long overlooked. With 33% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions coming from agriculture, the planet is warming alarmingly fast. The cheeseburger footprint shows that a single cheeseburger emits 10 pounds of CO2. Well, what does that mean? Well, if the American population eats 50 billion burgers a year, take a wild guess. Mathematicians, great job. You've just realized that 500 billion pounds of CO2 are annually coming from our classic American staple. Please, focus on what's at stake. Our existence! 40% of deforestation is due to the need for cattle land. 50% of the world's habitable space is being used for agriculture, and Americans are unapologetically emitting 500 billion pounds of CO2 every year because of a craving. Are we ever going to stop? Should we? The Drawdown Project proves that if half the population were to go plant-based over the next 30 years, over 143 trillion pounds of CO2 would be kept out of the atmosphere. But we must face a rude awakening. Our atmosphere is already filled to the brim with carbon. Decades of emissions have covered us in an atmospheric blanket of greenhouse gases. And soon, they'll swallow us whole. But what if I told you eating less meat solves that too? By increasing the demand for plant-based proteins and using sustainable farming, we can replenish the soil. When did soil come into the picture? 450 million years ago, when it started its most critical job, carbon sequestration. When plants die, healthy soil will just soak back up their stored carbon, keeping it out of the air. So it should be keeping our atmosphere nice and clean, right? Well, clearly wrong. With livestock land being devastated, the soil can't fulfill its climate aid purpose. But if it survived, over 5.5 billion tons of CO2 would be removed every year. Worldwide, governments have failed to meaningfully address the climate crisis, which is why we, the people, must take independent action. One giant step, eating less meat. For too many, it sounds impossible. No more burgers, steaks, hamburger steaks? These cravings should not be the reason our oceans are rising, temperatures skyrocketing, and natural disasters increasingly catastrophic. As global citizens, we have the power to better our world. So I need one person in this room to try to go vegetarian, 2 of you to eat 1 less burger this month, and 3 of you to learn more about how your diet affects the climate. With this, my work is certainly not done, but you, my friends, will be getting started in our journey to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Next up, we have Jim LaFou with the speech No One's Laughing.
You're so gay. That's autistic. I'm sped. Who has heard these words carelessly thrown around? These simple jokes could drive someone to leave school or even commit suicide. The worst part is, a majority of LGBTQ students hear them almost every day. These jokes are unacceptable and have real effects on how minorities are perceived. Derogatory jokes need to be removed from our vocabulary because they're marginalizing and build a discriminatory school environment. After hearing these often unrelated jokes day by day, you may wonder, why make them? Prejudice stems from a fear of difference and seeps into everyday conversations through derogatory humor. We treat gay as another meaningless insult, almost like the word retarded. Regarding sexist jokes, a study revealed that male participants valued other men's opinions of their jokes over women's, showing they served a male bonding function. This begs the question, why should we prioritize bystanders over the actual targets of these jokes? Whether it personally impacts you or not, derogatory humor makes people feel uncomfortable and even unsafe. 94% of LGBTQ students felt distressed by jokes like "that's okay." These are real words describing people's identities, experiences, and communities, and using them as insults is intolerable and demeaning to all of that. These repeated jokes are like bullying, something 75% of autistic people experience. The long-term effect? Only half of autistic youth felt safe at school, and according to the Suicide Prevention Resource Center, they have a suicide risk 3 times higher than average. It might seem dramatic to connect harmless jokes to suicide rates, but their effects are real and observable. Each derogatory joke adds to a discriminatory school environment, reinforcing stereotypes and stigma. It creates a climate here at Punahou, where sharing your pronouns warrants responses like, "My pronouns are nuclear bomb," or "I identify as an attack helicopter." It's not about labeling everything as offensive, it's about the concrete effects on how people are treated. A study from the International Journal of Humor Research showed that men were more aggressive towards women after hearing sexist jokes. And the hostile school environment caused half the dropouts in LGBTQ students, something that's happened with my own classmates. Adults have regularly told me that this is just a part of middle school and people will grow out of these jokes. But immaturity isn't an excuse for unacceptable behavior. And people don't necessarily grow out of these phrases, spreading them to kids in 1st grade through 12th. Even as we mature into adults, derogatory humor progresses into the workplace. By letting our peers toss these phrases around, aren't we actively preparing them to repeat this behavior in the future? Our everyday interactions have immense power, both reflecting and shaping how we treat one another. Here's the thing. Derogatory humor can target anyone, not just minorities. It's not fun being in a community where your identity is tossed around like a toy. So I ask you to think, how necessary are such derogatory jokes in your daily speech? Are they worth someone's well-being? I call upon both students and teachers to take a stand against this type of language. Our words build the culture of the school, and it's our responsibility to use them consciously. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gemma. And finally, we have Scarlett Live with the speech, "Why 3-Day Weekend Should Be the New Norm."
Did you know that in the 1930s, 6-day work weeks were the norm? Most never believed 5-day weeks would catch on. Yet today, there is a growing trend for a 4-day week. In fact, over the past 20 years, there's been a 600% increase in schools with 4-day weeks. We all know the feeling of waking up on Monday mornings. Yet today, as the realization of a 3-day weekend hits you, it's like you're on cloud 9. But most of us don't realize the additional benefits. With 4-day weeks, productivity skyrockets. In Japan, Microsoft decided to test this out. Workers' productivity rate increased by 40%. Productivity would likely increase for Punahou. During the trial, electricity use decreased by 23%. And if the UK were to implement this schedule, they would save 691 million miles per week. 3-day weekends would cut costs, help the environment, and increase productivity. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, 18% of adolescents experience depression. Socializing and getting more exercise and sleep all help depression and would increase if given a 3-day weekend. 60% of employees from over 30 companies felt they had a better work and life balance. We're all too familiar with stress, but what we don't realize is that it can deteriorate the hippocampus, part of the brain associated with memory and learning. 3-day weekends would create a well-balanced life and enhance student learning. With an extra day, students would be given real-world learning experiences. Interactions, field trips, and outside opportunities are some of our most valuable lessons. The American Psychological Association reported that students with connections and friendships gained higher academic achievement and felt more social. Google can solve complicated formulas or define words, but it can't explain the most essential communication skills. These memories and friendships forever impact who we are. So you may be thinking, doesn't less school time equal less learning? Not necessarily. Teachers would have more time to plan lessons, and students would be more efficient. Solutions include slightly extending the day. We've all heard the saying quality over quantity. It's the quality of these school days that counts, not the quantity. Another concern is childcare, yet this extra day would create valuable family time and generate new jobs. In summary, school brings us a wealth of knowledge and a community. Yet 3-day weekends would have immeasurable benefits, such as an increase in productivity and focus, the time to explore a new passion, or to make a difference in our community. Most importantly, with a better balance between school and life, the whole student would be cared for. Punahou is always pioneering the way for student learning and well-being. Implementing 3-day weekends would have a powerful impact on our school and community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask our judges to finish tabulating and then to remember to please fill out your green top sheet, your final top scores. Can we have another round of applause for all? Thank you so much. Just an FYI for our folks who are not familiar with the Damon speech that might be watching. These 8 folks actually come from our entire grade level. Damon speech is something that all of our 8th graders participate in here at Punahou School. All of our 8th graders write and perform a 3 to 4 minute speech for their classmates. And these 8 were chosen from across the grade to represent their different team spaces. So thank you folks again so much. While our judges are finishing up their top score sheets, and we're going to tabulate the final results so that we can actually share them here with you folks in the next few minutes. We're going to ask you folks to talk amongst yourselves. Rhode Island is neither a road nor an island. Discuss. And take a few minutes to do that before we announce the winners. First of all, can we give a big hand to our judges at this? Tabulated all of these scores with the And without further ado, I'm going to announce our top 3 winners. So in 3rd place, we have Jacqueline Kashimoto. And in 2nd place, we have Carol Alice. And in 1st place, and the winner of this year's Damon speech, congratulations to Sophia Thank you folks so much. With that, we're going to give another round of applause to everyone. And with the exception of our lovely speakers, we're going to ask you folks to head off to your next class. Thank you so much. Have a great day.